It started with something so small I almost didn't notice. Just a folded slip of paper wedged into the inside pocket of my navy blazer. The one I hadn't worn since the quarterly board meeting, which was, 3 weeks ago? I didn't remember leaving anything in there. Honestly, I didn't remember the last time I even reached into that pocket. But there it was, pressed flat against the lining like it had been waiting for me to find it. I was already running late for a client breakfast, coffee in one hand and briefcase in the other. I remember shrugging into the blazer, smoothing it over my shoulders in the mirror when I felt it. I tugged it out, half expecting a receipt or a reminder note I'd written to myself. It was neither. White stationery. Curved handwriting. A scent, soft and unmistakable, rose immediately from the paper. A perfume I knew better than I probably should have, vanilla with a touch of amber and something floral underneath. Warm, expensive. Courtney's perfume. The one she wore maybe once a month when we had a dinner out or she had something big at work. The same one I'd surprised her with on our anniversary 2 years ago, picked out after hours of sniffing little glass tubes at Nordstrom. My pulse ticked up as I unfolded the note. It wasn't addressed to anyone, but it didn't have to be. Last night was magic. Still thinking about your hands? Same time next Friday. Just 2 sentences. Simple. In asterisk, mate. Devastating. I read it again. And then again. My brain tried to find other explanations, to connect dots in ways that didn't lead to what I already feared. A prank? A leftover joke from a colleague? But there was nothing funny about it. Nothing vague. And the perfume, that was personal. That was Courtney. I stood there in the middle of our bedroom, the note in my hand, the sleeves of my blazer rolled halfway up my arms like I'd forgotten how to get dressed. The ceiling fan hummed above me. Our dog, Max, stirred in his bed in the corner, blinked at me, then went back to sleep. The world hadn't stopped, but mine had definitely tilted. I took a photo of the note with my phone, just in case. I didn't know why I needed to do that yet, but something in my gut told me I might want a record. By the time Courtney walked into the kitchen, I was already there, sipping lukewarm coffee I hadn't tasted, staring at the note on the counter. She was humming. Humming. She wore a flowy cream blouse tucked into black slacks and had her hair pinned up like she always did when she wanted to look both professional and effortless. She froze for just a fraction of a second when she saw the note lying open. "What's this?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. Her eyes flitted to the paper and then to me. "Where'd you find that?" "In my blazer. This morning." She walked over casually, too casually, picked it up and gave a half-hearted laugh. "Oh my God, seriously?" She shook her head. "You guys at the office are unbelievable." I blinked. "What?" She shrugged. "That's not mine. Probably some stupid prank from one of your coworkers. You know how guys are always joking about affairs or whatever. Gross, honestly." She crumpled the note in one hand and tossed it into the trash without another glance. I didn't say anything right away. I couldn't. Because while her words tried to dismiss it, her body told another story. I'd known Courtney for 5 years. Lived with her for 4. Married for 2.5. I knew when she was calm. I knew when she was lying. And she was lying. I saw it in the way her hands trembled slightly when she balled up the note. In the split second where her breath caught before she spoke. In the way she suddenly avoided eye contact, choosing instead to fill her travel mug with coffee like it was just another Tuesday. And I saw something else, fear. Not enough to make her break, but just enough to reveal the crack. I didn't press her. Not then. I let her believe she'd gotten away with it. Let her grab her bag, kiss me quickly on the cheek, and murmur something about being late for a team meeting. Let her walk out the door, heels clicking against the tile like punctuation marks to a sentence I didn't want to hear. And once the door clicked shut, I pulled the note back out of the trash and smoothed it out again. "Still thinking about your hands? Same time next Friday." I read it until the words blurred. That day at work, I barely got anything done. My mind was in 2 places at once, stuck on that note and trying to pretend like everything was fine. I kept remembering small things that I'd brushed off before, how her phone was always upside down now, how she'd started wearing that perfume more often even on random weeknights when we didn't go anywhere. How she'd recently told me her yoga class was now co-ed with a smirk that didn't quite match the words. And how just last Friday she had gotten home late claiming the class ran over. She looked flushed, her hair too perfect, her eyes a little too bright. I'd kissed her goodnight and tasted peppermint and wine, odd for post-yoga. I started counting backwards. If the note said next Friday, then whoever wrote it had met her last Friday. I was losing my mind. Or I was finally seeing what I didn't want to see. Either way, I knew something had shifted. That night, when Courtney came home, I pretended everything was normal. I asked about her meeting. She said it went fine but dragged on. She poured herself a glass of wine and curled up on the couch, scrolling through her phone while the TV flickered. I studied her like I was seeing her for the first time. She looked happy. Relaxed even. Too much so. And that note, still folded neatly in my sock drawer, burned in the back of my mind like a secret only I knew existed. It was the first piece. The first proof. And no matter how small she tried to make it, I couldn't unsee it. After the note, I started noticing things. Not brand new behaviors, no, these were things that had always been there, just dressed differently now. Slight changes that felt harmless when I wasn't paying attention. But now everything looked like a clue. Like I was living in the aftermath of a crime and only just beginning to understand where all the bodies were buried. First, it was her phone. Courtney had always been a casual phone user. She'd leave it charging on the nightstand, face up, often without a lock screen. I could have picked it up any time and she wouldn't have cared. That openness used to make me feel like we had nothing to hide from each other. But lately, her phone never left her side. It went from casual background noise to a sixth limb. Always in her hand, always on silent, and always face down. Even in the shower, she took it into the bathroom with her, placed it carefully on the counter, screen inward. I asked her once, just out of habit, "Aren't you worried about the steam?" She said it's fine. I read somewhere it's actually good for the speaker. That didn't even make sense. Next came the schedule shifts. She started coming home later, blaming it on deadlines, evening strategy sessions, or networking happy hours. All things she'd done before, yes, but now they were happening 2-3 times a week. Every excuse came neatly packaged, just vague enough to avoid questions but detailed enough to feel pre-rehearsed. She even changed her workout routine. She had been going to yoga every Saturday morning for the past year. She liked the early sessions, said they helped reset her for the weekend. But all of a sudden she was going to a different studio across town. A more intense instructor, she said. I didn't argue. I didn't want to be that guy, the one who polices his wife's schedule. But one Saturday she came home glowing. That's the only way to describe it. Like her whole body was brighter. Her makeup was still immaculate. Her hair, which should have been tied up and frizzed from heat and sweat, looked professionally blown out. Yoga didn't do that. I asked her how the class went. She stretched, smiled, and said, brutal. My legs are *ling me. I looked at those legs. Smooth, tanned, not a single crease on her leggings. And suddenly, I wondered if she had even gone at all. There was more. Subtle, maddening things. A shirt. A pale blue button-down that wasn't mine. It showed up in the laundry one day, folded between my sweaters like it belonged there. At first, I assumed it was something I forgot I owned. But when I tried it on, it was too big. Long in the sleeves, broad in the shoulders. Not by much, but enough to feel foreign. I asked her about it. She barely looked up. Oh, that's from that online order I did last month. It must have been a sizing mistake. I'll return it. But she didn't. And I never saw it again. That same week, she started playing a new playlist around the house. Soft acoustic tracks, male vocals, moody lyrics. Not her usual taste. She was more into upbeat pop, things she could clean or dance to. But now it was all slow strumming and vague heartbreak. I asked her who the artist was. She shrugged. It came on in class. I liked it. It sounded like a lie, but it was the kind you can't prove. The kind that makes you feel crazy for asking. Then there were the gaps. The silence. Courtney had always been a talker. Not a chatterbox, but someone who narrated her life, who she had lunch with, which coworker annoyed her, what weird dream she had the night before. But suddenly her days became summaries. Work was fine. Nothing much happened. Just tired today. And on the flip side, she asked me fewer questions. Like she didn't really care what I was up to anymore. Like she was phoning in the role of wife, but no longer interested in playing the part. At night, we barely touched. Not that in * Macy had vanished completely, it just felt distant. Polite. Like brushing lips at a formal event. Sometimes she'd pull away halfway through a kiss, like her mind was somewhere else. Other times she'd climb into bed already turned toward the wall. I told myself we were just going through a rough patch. Every marriage has them, right? But deep down I knew I was lying to myself. One night, I decided to test a theory. We were sitting on the couch. She was scrolling on her phone and I was pretending to watch a documentary. Her screen lit up with a message preview, "See you Friday," before she quickly tilted the phone away. Who's that? I asked without looking up. She didn't even flinch. Maddie. She's setting up drinks with the girls. I nodded. Cool. Tell her I said hey. She smiled. Will do. But that flicker was back. The same one I saw when she found the note. The microsecond of tension like a crack in glass. Later that night, when she was asleep, I checked the trash. No deleted texts on her laptop. No calendar invites. Maddie hadn't messaged her in days. She'd lied. Again. And just like that, the doubts started to form a pattern. Not isolated moments, but a timeline. A mosaic of subtle betrayals that, when viewed as a whole, painted something undeniable. I started remembering more things. Like how she'd recently changed her phone's lock screen. A new passcode. She'd done it casually during breakfast without explanation. When I asked her why, she smiled and said, "It's good to update your passwords now and then." Sure. For security. But from what? She also stopped asking me to pick her up. If she went out with friends or had a late work thing, she'd say, "Don't worry about it, I'll just take a lift." And when I'd offer, she'd wave me off like I was being dramatic. And then there was the perfume. She'd started wearing it more. That same scent I smelled on the note. Vanilla and amber, but heavier now. More frequent. I'd wake up and find the scent lingering in the bathroom, in the hallway, on the couch. Like she'd passed through quickly. Like someone in a rush to cover something up. All of it made sense now. Not perfect sense, but the kind of clarity you get after staring at something long enough. The edges came into focus. The patterns clicked into place. The note hadn't been a fluke. It had been the opening act. The real story was happening around me, under me, through me. I just hadn't been paying attention. But I was now. I used to be the kind of guy who gave the benefit of the doubt. Who assumed the best, who trusted until he was given a reason not to. But that man was slipping away, replaced by someone quieter, more calculating. Someone who'd beg *N to catalog red flags like they were evidence in a case I hadn't wanted to open. I didn't plan to go digging. I really didn't. But suspicion changes your instincts. It rewires your brain. Suddenly, things you never questioned become clues. And when I say I stumbled on the truth, I mean that literally. It was a Wednesday afternoon when I found out Courtney wasn't where she said she'd be. She had told me she was flying out for a quick 2-day business trip to Seattle, client meetings, she said. She'd packed a sleek black carry-on, kissed me goodbye in the morning, and sent a selfie from the airport Starbucks. It looked convincing enough, messy bun, laptop open, cardboard cup in hand. Captioned, "Here we go again, airplane." I replied with a heart emoji and went about my day. Tried to anyway. That evening, while scrolling through LinkedIn, I saw a photo posted by someone on her team. A conference room *T, typical work stuff, table cluttered with notepads, smiling employees, a projection screen in the background. The caption read, "Kicking off our Q2 review. Grateful for this squad briefcase speech balloon." But Courtney wasn't in it. No big deal, I told myself. Maybe she was taking the photo. Or maybe she skipped that meeting. But curiosity had already taken hold. I clicked on the user's profile, then checked their other recent posts. Another photo popped up, this time a group *T at dinner, wine glasses raised, everyone dressed casually. The location tagged, Cypress and Vine, San Francisco. San Francisco. Not Seattle. And again, no Courtney. I scrolled faster, checking Instagram, Facebook, even a few company profiles. Everyone from her team seemed to be accounted for. All in the same place. All local. That's when the unease turned into something else, certainty. I didn't call her. I didn't text. Instead, I waited. The next morning, I walked into her home office to grab my headphones. Her work laptop was there, still open. Not unusual. But for once, it wasn't locked. Maybe she'd forgotten. Maybe she didn't expect me to check. I hesitated. My hands hovered over the mouse like I was about to commit a crime. But something inside me pushed forward. A quiet voice that said, "You already know. Just look." I opened her email. Nothing incriminating there at first. Just work threads, calendar invites, the usual. But then I clicked her drafts folder. Buried in the list was an email titled, "Friday Night Speech Balloon." With no recipient. It read, "I can still hear your voice. I woke up thinking about your hands on my back. I hate that I have to wait until next time." I sat back in the chair. My heartbeat was slow, heavy, like it had dropped into my stomach. Then I clicked over to her messaging app. I had seen her using it before, Slack, but not the work one. This was a personal account. The messages were there. She hadn't logged out. Maybe she didn't think I'd ever check. Maybe she thought I still trusted her the way I used to. The most recent conversation was pinned. His name was Nate. Nate. The name meant nothing to me. Just a stranger. But the messages weren't strangers. They were familiar. *mate. Brazen. Last night was unbelievable. You always know exactly what I need. Thinking about you wearing that dress again. You know the one. Same hotel this Friday? Rooms already booked. I'll text the check-in info later. There were pictures too. Not graphic but personal. A selfie of the two of them in a dimly lit room. His arm around her waist. Another of their feet tangled together at the end of a bed. A close-up of her hand resting on his chest. Her wedding ring conspicuously absent. My breath caught. And then came the final nail. A photo clearly taken in a hotel room. Behind them, draped casually over the back of a chair, was a pale blue shirt. The same one that had appeared in our laundry weeks ago. The one she said was a mistake from an online order. I stared at the image, then at the shirt, then back again. There was no mistaking it. Everything snapped into place. That shirt, that scent, that note, the absences, the half-truths, the full lies. She wasn't just drifting. She wasn't just unhappy. She was cheating. Fully. Physically. Repeatedly. And I had the proof. I should have been angry. I should have broken something. But instead, I sat there in silence. There was a strange calm that settled over me. Like my brain had stopped trying to debate or rationalize. Like a switch had flipped, and now it was just cold clarity. I took **TS, saved the photos, forwarded the messages to myself, then logged out of everything and closed the laptop. When she called that afternoon, presumably from her fake Seattle hotel room, I answered like nothing was wrong. "Hey babe," she said, "just heading into a session. Wanted to check in real quick." "Nice," I said. "Everything going okay?" "Yeah, just long days, you know?" I nodded. "Yeah, I miss you." "I miss you too." We hung up a minute later. I stared at the screen for a while after that. She had no idea I knew. And that was my power now. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. I was going to take my time. That night, I slept in the guest room. I needed distance. Needed to think. Because now I wasn't just suspicious. Now I was sure. Now I had the undeniable confirmation. I didn't say anything when she got back. No confrontation. No shouting. No thrown accusations. Just silence. Courtney came through the door on Friday evening, rolling her black suitcase behind her, smiling like everything was exactly as she left it. She smelled like her travel perfume and hotel soap. I remember thinking how strange it was that I could recognize that scent. Faint, sterile, like citrus and linen. It clung to her skin the way a bad memory does. "Hey you," she said, setting her bag down and walking over to kiss me. I let her, not because I wanted to, but because I wasn't ready to show my cards. She pulled back, touched my cheek. "Missed you." I smiled. "Missed you too." That was the last lie I ever told her. From that moment forward, I went quiet. Not in an angry way, nothing that would alarm her. Just quieter. My answers became shorter. My questions fewer. My presence less present. Like a shadow beginning to fade from the frame. At first, she didn't notice. She was tired, distracted, texting a lot. Probably updating him. Nate, the man from the photos. The one she thought I didn't know about. But I knew everything now. And I wasn't going to waste another breath arguing with someone who had already decided to leave me long before I knew I needed to chase. Instead, I got to work. That weekend, I opened a private checking account in my name only. Quietly transferred half our shared savings into it. Not enough to raise a red flag, but enough to secure a soft landing. I began collecting documents, bank statements, credit card activity, email threads. I backed up my laptop, then hers. Took photos of the messages she'd forgotten to delete, the hotel room images, even the shirt that had reappeared in our laundry once again. On Sunday morning, while she slept in, I called the travel agent and canceled our honeymoon extension. We had planned to go to Spain that summer, to renew our vows in a little white village on the coast. It had been her dream. She talked about it for months. I let her keep dreaming, let her pin photos to her travel board, let her browse white dresses on her tablet at night while I lay beside her in the same bed she betrayed. And while she did that, I contacted a lawyer. Not to file papers yet. Just to talk. To ask questions. To understand what I'd be giving up and what I had to protect. The lawyer's name was Deborah. Older woman, sharp as a blade. She didn't ask for details at first, just listened as I explained that I had reasons to believe my wife was having an affair. She asked, "Do you have proof?" I said yes. She didn't ask how I got it. "Then you have leverage," she said calmly. "But be strategic. Don't let your emotions guide your actions. Let the facts do that." So I did. I started making small changes, canceling our shared streaming subscriptions, moving automatic payments to my personal card. I started using a different grocery store, bought my own set of towels, changed the password to my laptop, and added biometric locks to my phone. When she asked why the Netflix account wasn't working, I shrugged. Must be a billing error. When she noticed the mail being stacked differently, I said, trying to stay organized. And when she saw me sleeping in the guest room one night and asked, "Are you okay?" I said, "Just needed space. Long week." I think that's when she started to sense something had shifted. Not enough to suspect the whole truth, but enough to realize I wasn't orbiting her anymore. I wasn't waiting for her explanations. I wasn't chasing her attention. I was detaching. Every night, she played the role of devoted wife, making dinner, asking about my day, kissing my shoulder as she passed behind me in the kitchen. And every night I let her. I let her think things were salvageable. But inside, I was already gone. I stopped planning our future. Stopped mentioning our anniversary. Stopped offering to walk the dog together. I didn't argue. I didn't poke. I didn't engage. And that terrified her more than any shouting match ever could. One night, while we sat watching a movie, she turned to me and said, "Do you still love me?" I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't know, but because I wanted her to feel the weight of the silence. Then I said, "Yeah, I think so." She smiled, a little relieved, and nestled into my shoulder. But what I didn't say, what I couldn't say, was that love wasn't the issue anymore. Trust was. And that was already dead. Later that week, she announced we'd been invited to a corporate breakfast at her firm. Something about a quarterly awards presentation. She asked me to come, said it would mean a lot. I said yes. Of course I said yes. I wore the same blazer. The one where I'd found the note. And as she stood on stage the next morning, delivering a polished, charming speech about teamwork and excellence, I stood in the back with a calm expression. I clapped politely. I shook hands. I sipped my coffee. And when her voice faltered mid-sentence, when she scanned the crowd and saw me standing motionless, no smile, no nod, I saw it. The flicker. That same flicker I'd seen the day she found the note. Fear. She knew then. She knew I knew. Later, she tried to talk to me in the car. "You were quiet in there. Everything okay?" I looked out the window. "Yeah. Just tired." Another lie. But not for much longer. Because everything she thought she was protecting, the image, the control, the illusion, it was already unraveling. And she didn't even realize the life she was still pretending to live had been quietly pulled out from under her feet. She thought we were still a team. But I was already playing a different game. And I was winning. It was the kind of event she lived for, polished, catered, full of name tags and well-timed applause. A corporate breakfast held in the glossy atrium of her firm's downtown headquarters. The kind of morning where people wore power suits and smiled like everything in the world was going right. Courtney had spent the whole week rehearsing her speech, tweaking it late into the night, timing her pauses in front of the bathroom mirror. She even had me sit through a dry run, watching as she recited lines about innovation, synergy, and forward-thinking leadership. She looked radiant that morning. Sleek navy dress. Hair pulled into a perfect knot. Heels that made her an inch taller and 10 degrees more in asterisk mid-8ing. As she paced the bedroom grabbing her notes, she kept saying how important this was, that this presentation could push her name closer to partner, that she just needed everything to land. And I nodded, supportive as ever. I straightened her collar, complimented her earrings, kissed her forehead. The perfect husband. We arrived separately per her suggestion. "You don't need to be stuck in the chaos before it starts," she'd said. "Just come in time for the speech." And I agreed, letting her have her spotlight, letting her think I was still in orbit. But I had other plans that morning. Because what she didn't know, what no one in that pristine atrium knew, was that the project she was about to present, the one she had poured into PowerPoint slides and team dashboards, had already been approved. Hours earlier. By me. She didn't know I'd been consulting with her firm's financial committee for months. A side gig she never asked about, one I never advertised. It wasn't in my job title, and it didn't need to be. Because while she played chess on the board everyone could see, I'd been playing beneath it, quiet, measured, decisive. I'd signed off on her project's final financial release at 7:46 a.m. that morning. It was already done. Finalized. Executed. But no one in that room knew yet. And I wasn't going to tell them. Not until she took the stage. The atrium was buzzing when I arrived. Waiters in black ties moved through clusters of staff with trays of espresso sh*ts and fruit parfaits. Every table had a folded program card with her name in bold print across the top. Courtney Benson, Strategic Initiatives Lead. I sat near the back. Not to be inconspicuous, but because I wanted to see everything, the whole room, her face, the shift when the moment came. She was introduced with glowing praise. Our rising star, the host said. The mind behind one of our most ambitious cross-departmental realignments this year. The crowd applauded. She walked up, composed and smiling, holding her notes like they were holy scripture. Good morning, she began, voice smooth. It's an honor to stand before all of you today. She thanked the executive board. She thanked her team. She thanked her husband, me, though she said it like an afterthought, I scanning the room without landing on mine. And then she began her pitch. Slide after slide, charts and forecasts and strategic recalibrations. She was good. I'll give her that. She was clear, confident, compelling. But it was all unnecessary. Because behind the scenes, her presentation had already been rendered irrelevant. As she clicked to the final slide, an animated summary of projected gains, I stood. Not dramatically. Not with a flourish. Just stood. She saw me immediately. Her eyes widened just for a moment and then narrowed in confusion. I wasn't supposed to be standing. No one else was. The audience was still watching her. But I walked. Right down the side aisle. Past rows of executives, associates, interns who'd spilled coffee on their name tags. My footsteps echoed faintly on the polished floor. And when I reached the exit doors at the back of the atrium, I paused. Turned. Met her eyes. And nodded. Just once. It was enough. Her voice caught mid-sentence. A pause. A fumble. She looked around, searching for a thread she could grab to steady herself. But there was none. The silence was brutal. Because in that second she knew. She knew the game was over. She may not have known exactly how or why, but she felt the shift, the balance of control, the illusion of power slip through her fingers. And in the absence of certainty, she crumbled. She stumbled through the last few lines of her speech. The applause, when it came, was hesitant, scattered. People clapped because they were supposed to. Because they didn't know what else to do. I didn't stay to hear it. I was already gone. Outside, the air was sharp. Mid-spring chill biting through my sleeves. I walked a few blocks before stopping, not really knowing where I was headed. Just moving forward because that's what you do when the past stops holding you in place. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from her. Where are you? What's going on? I didn't reply. I walked to a small cafe we used to like. Ordered a black coffee and sat by the window. And for the first time in weeks, I felt light. Not happy. Not yet. But light. Later that afternoon, I received an email from the firm. A summary of the project's approval with my signature attached at the bottom. I archived it without reading. Back at home, I sat in our living room, still our living room for now, and waited for her to return. She came in around 6. Quiet. Measured. Like someone stepping into an unfamiliar room in their own house. Can we talk? She asked. I nodded. She sat across from me. Her voice was calm but strained. I feel like something's happening and I don't understand it. I said nothing. I thought we were okay, she continued. I know we've both been busy, but I thought. I held up a hand. She stopped. And I said, you were never going to tell me, were you? She blinked. Tell you what? I tilted my head. Seattle. Her mouth opened, then closed. Silence. Then, I don't know what you think you know. I know enough, I said. I know everything. Her eyes filled with something I didn't recognize. Not guilt. Not panic. Shame. Real, naked shame. And I knew then that it was over. Not the marriage. That had ended the moment she chose someone else. No, what ended now was the performance. There were no more lines to read. No more roles to play. And she wasn't the star anymore. She was just a woman sitting across from the man she lied to with nothing left to say. I stood, walked to the kitchen, and poured myself a glass of water. Trevor, she said softly. I didn't look back. Not anymore. She didn't come home that night. After the event, after our non-conversation, she texted something vague, staying at Maddie's. Need to clear my head. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The game was over and silence was the only language left to speak. The next morning, I woke early. I packed her things. Every sweater, every skincare bottle, every pair of heels I'd tripped over. Her books, her jewelry, the framed quote she'd hung above our bed, love is a choice. I wrapped them all in newspaper and placed them gently into boxes. Not out of sentiment. Out of respect for the version of us that had once existed. I rented a storage unit across town. Paid for 6 months in advance. I even left a few extras: fresh towels, hangers, bottled water. Closure should never be cruel, only clear. When it was done, I texted her the access code and address. One sentence: everything's there. Back at the house, I cleaned. Deep cleaned. The kind you do when you're not just erasing dirt, but memory. I scrubbed the floors, changed the linens, burned the last of the candle she loved. I changed the locks that afternoon. Canceled the alarm access. Removed her fingerprint from the smart lock. She called. Twice. Then 3 more times. I didn't pick up. That evening, I sat alone at the kitchen table and slid her engagement ring into a plain envelope. No note. Just the ring. I placed it on the hallway table. She'd see it if she showed up again. She did. Hours later. She knocked softly. Then harder. Trevor, she whispered. Please talk to me. I didn't move. I made a mistake, she said. Please. Just open the door. But I didn't. I let the silence answer. Because some doors, once closed, stay closed. The days after felt strange. Not good. Not bad. Just quiet. I didn't sleep well at first. Not because I missed her, but because I was adjusting to the absence. It's like losing a constant hum. You don't notice it until it's gone, and then the silence is deafening. But eventually, it became comforting. I rearranged the house. Not dramatically, just enough to reclaim the space. I moved the couch, put new photos on the walls. Reorganized the bookshelf she'd once color-coded, lining the spines by publication year instead. Not out of spite, just to make it mine. Her perfume was gone now. The sweetness that once clung to everything had finally faded. The bedroom smelled like linen and air. I started sleeping through the night again. I picked up old hobbies: cooking, reading, going for evening runs. I even called friends I hadn't seen in months. They didn't ask questions. Just showed up with beer and quiet understanding. The storage unit remained untouched. She never picked up the boxes. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe she wouldn't. I stopped checking. Everything that once belonged to her physically, emotionally, was now reduced to a code in a system and a line on a receipt. I kept one box. A small one. Tucked it into the back of the closet. Photos, cards, our wedding invitation. Not because I wanted to remember, but because part of me needed to. Not to forgive. Just to remember that it happened. That I loved someone, and she left. And now finally I was free. Not in the dramatic sense. Not in a movie-ending way. Just free. To breathe. To rebuild. To live a life that no longer required pretending. And that quietly was enough.